Hello everyone and welcome to Coffee Break Webinar with Ulu. Here we have Christina Manzo from the Boston Public Library, and she is going to tell us about metadata and public trust. Christina, take it away.
Thank you very much. As Marissa said, my name is Christina Manzo, and I am a reference librarian at the Boston Public Library. However, my background is in usability testing and design. So what I'm mainly going to be talking about today is a study that I did in collaboration with Dartmouth College in 2014 regarding the reliability and kind of overall future of user-generated metadata. So let's get right into it. I will share my screen with you. And present. All right, so metadata and public trust. Again, I am Christina, and you are free to follow me at Christina_Manzo on Twitter. But first, before we jump into my study, I wanted to talk first about some preconceived notions that I've noticed exist in the field, and definitely preconceived notions that I had before undertaking this study. One of my initial positions at the Crowdsourcing Consortium for Libraries and Archives was to basically convince as many librarians as I could that user-generated metadata that had potential, basically. And I noticed that there was a completely justifiable lack of almost trust in the public. It's understandable because we have, such valuable collections, and we pay a lot of money to correctly catalog them. And we want to make sure they're as findable and as usable as humanly possible. So there is an understandable reluctance in the field. The preconceived notions mainly being that traditional metadata is reliable, organized, and helpful, whereas the unconventional side of metadata would be unreliable, unorganized, and unhelpful, when in reality, neither of these is exactly true. The reality is somewhere in the middle. Very much like the well-placed Buffy quote I managed to work in. Traditional metadata is often very reliable and organized. However, we have to realize that it's not always helpful to the modern user, whereas unconventional metadata is often unreliable and unorganized. However, we have to realize that it is, in many times, more helpful to a modern user than traditional metadata would be. In fact, in a 2008 study, researchers Antle and Hong actually found an overwhelmingly negative trend in traditional searching as patrons are more and more influenced by keyword search engines. So the study itself had two main purposes. The first was to see how people tagged items, how they assigned user-generated metadata to library collections. Would these tags, would this metadata be useful? Would it be valuable? Would it be accurate? We had no idea going in. And then we also wanted to see how these, how user-generated metadata could affect usability and findability of library websites and OPACs, which is one of the most fundamental functionalities of any key library website. As it says below, 82% of people that had visited a library website, according to a 2013 Pew Research study, did so looking for a specific book or DVD or other resource. So to do this, we surveyed both people in the library and information science field and outside of it to see if there was any statistically significant difference between people people inside the field and people outside the field. And for task 2, to find items, we also separated people out into 2 different groups there as well, between a group of people that had access to a user interface that was designed only with controlled vocabulary search terms, and a user interface that was designed with controlled vocabulary search terms, in addition to supplementing it with user-generated metadata to see what the impact would be of this unconventional metadata on overall findability. And what we found was actually really interesting. Going back to task 1, the tags that we received, we scored on a revised Voorbj and Kipp scale. And the reason that we use this scale is that it bore a similarity to the controlled vocabulary in which we were working, which was Library of Congress subject headings. If you'll notice, not only does the scale reward exact matches or synonyms in scores of 1 or 2, but it also incorporates terms that you'll probably be familiar with, namely broader terms, narrower terms, and related terms in the scores 3, 4, and 5. The goal was to see how accurate people could be, but also how much supplementary metadata they could add that would be unincluded in traditional metadata. For example, in the score example of 5, somebody tagged this very famous photo of the Hindenburg as flames. It is a related term to the Library of Congress subject heading of explosions, which was included in traditional metadata. However, without unconventional metadata, this photo using these search terms would not have been found otherwise. So the main things that we were looking for was to see how many scores would fall between the 1 to 2 range, meaning it would be very accurate, and how many scores would fall between the 6 to 7 range, meaning they were basically throwaway tags that weren't very useful to our needs as libraries. So what we found actually kind of shocked us, because we actually went back and redid the research over again several times, or the math again several times over, to make sure that what we had was accurate. Because if you look at the 2 graphs that are here, they are strikingly similar. Now, the one on the left is for LIS participants. The one on the right is for non-LIS participants. And what we see is that regardless of profession, the most statistically significant portion of the data collected was an exact match to professional metadata, and there is almost a statistically insignificant amount of junk metadata, as well as, you know, the distributions between the data itself they're actually very similar. Again, we had to redo our math to make sure that this was correct. But what this really tells me is that given the opportunity and given that trust, people both inside and outside of the library and information sciences have the potential to provide meaningful and accurate metadata while also supplementing the metadata we already have. Now moving on to task 2, which was findability. We kept track of 2 different aspects of this search. How long it took participants to find what they were looking for, and their success in finding the overall number of items out of a total of 5. Again, I'll remind you that we separated these into 2 groups, between a group that had access to simply a user interface that only had access to controlled vocabularies, and a group that had access to a user interface that incorporated both controlled vocabularies and folksonomies, meaning user-generated metadata. If you don't know what a folksonomy is, don't worry, it's a very esoteric term. It actually just means any classification created on the internet, for the internet, by the internet. So what you'll see is that the search time in seconds almost quadruples in the group that only had access to traditional metadata. And keep in mind that this only represents when participants stopped searching. So they were allowed to give up. Many of the controlled vocabulary participants actually got very frustrated and gave up. I mean, they tried, but they also, you know, were many times unsuccessful, as the second graph will show. However, the average search time in the folksonomy group is very low, and they also yielded a high number of search successes. If you look at the graph on the right, you'll see that, again, access in the, that these numbers run inverse to each other, that the folksonomy group nearly quadruples the average number of items found to the controlled vocabulary group. And again, this is out of a total number of 5. So there was almost, we got very close to the folksonomy group having an average that was perfect. But the main takeaways that I would take away from this study and also from this presentation is that unconventional metadata has the potential to be extremely accurate. In fact, in 88% of our users were able to get either a score of either 1 or 2, which is fantastic, which is higher than we ever would have dreamed. It also makes things extremely findable and extremely usable. Again, this is one of the biggest cornerstones of a successful library online presence, is having a findable, usable interface for users. There's also a fantastic return on investment, because the data that you're getting is absolutely free, but it also has the potential to be extremely valuable. It also has the potential to prevent many search failures. That would be times where folksonomic metadata would have absolutely created a positive searching experience had the user been in the right user group. So my main takeaway from the study was actually said best by George Patton, which is never tell people how to do things, tell them what to do, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity. I was absolutely blown away by the creativity and the intelligence of the people. And again, these were library and information sciences professionals, but also they were gardeners and teachers, and just a very varied group. So the reason I really the reason that I called this presentation what I did is that given the trust to catalog your collections, the public will absolutely surprise you. So now for the plug. If you would like to read the full article, you can feel free to go read it at digitalhumanities.quarterly.org. It is in issue 9.1. And my most recent article was published with WeaveUX at weaveux.org. However, if you don't want to memorize these URLs, they are both available through my personal website at christinamanzo.com. So now I would love to open up the floor to any questions if we have them. So I will turn off slide share.
All right.
And then if anybody has any questions, we can wrap up, or and I look forward to seeing all of you, by the way, at Urban Librarians Unite coming up. So follow me on Twitter and come say hi in person.
All right, I'm checking the comments right now.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, it only happened once. All right, I don't see any comments. However, we will be checking YouTube comments. If you came in later, we will be answering those.
All right. Well, in that case, I will see all of you at Urban Librarians very soon.
Yes.
And feel free to ping me on Twitter if you have any specific questions about doing usability testing at your library. So thank you very much to Ulu and to Marissa for introducing me, and I will see you all very soon.
All right, thank you. You have a good day.
You have a great day as well.
Yes.